Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Jo Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while and thinking, I know I want to do something different, I just need help getting clear on what to do and what that actually is, then Clarity is the place to start. Over 30 days, you get the chance to work one-to-one with me and to come along to the group calls inside my main program as well, so that you can start to get a feel of the support and coaching and community that is needed around you to do something different. This is perfect for people right at the beginning of processing all their thoughts and ideas, but it's also great for those who have already got some of the sprinkles, as I say, in place. Maybe that's a website, an Instagram page, an idea, some new training, but you've still got no real traction and no steady clients coming in. And that can give you the feeling that maybe it's just not going to happen. By the end of Clarity, if it feels like the right fit for you and for me, then there's an opportunity to come into the main year-long group program for deeper support, coaching and community. If this sounds like something you're interested in, then please have a look at www.jowatkins.com, where you'll find a link. Plus, there's an apply to work with me form if you're really not sure what sort of help and support you need. Fill that in and I will get back to you. Today's guest on the podcast is Emma Thornton. Emma is a GP registrar qualifying this April who has just returned from maternity leave with her second baby. As you will hear, she previously spent almost 5 years training in obs and gynae, and she came into medicine as a graduate, having worked as a biomedical scientist. Emma has a strong focus on women's health, impact, leadership, and health tech, and she is the co-founder of Cocoon, which is a digital platform supporting women after birth trauma. This was inspired by both her professional and personal experience. She has also founded Orbit Mentoring, which supports women in the health tech space, and she co-hosts the Pink Pineapple podcast, which is exploring femtech and the future of women's health. Just to add to that, she is also the founder of the Shoebox Fairies, which is a charity supporting vulnerable people, distributing over 1,000 care packages at Christmas time, which she will tell us all about. She's a wonderful person. She wears a lot of hats, and I'm very excited to welcome her to the podcast today. And Emma's fact for today might be one of my favourites, that you auditioned for the TV quiz show Eggheads.
I did indeed.
And did you not get through?
We didn't get through. I think, unfortunately, they wanted a bit of like a preamble before you gave your answer. But I think that, kind of indoctrinated in me that kind of quick response, MCQ, need to get it all done. I would just give her the answer straight away. And so were the people that were with me. So yeah, it was a hard habit to break, I think.
That's brilliant. Did you go into a studio and record it and everything?
No, we were in a hotel in Birmingham with some of the production team. But we didn't follow their instructions. They were like, oh, if you could just, explain how you've deduced, you've come to your answers. And we were like, yeah, it's A. So I don't think we would have made good telly.
Yeah. Yeah, you were far too quick as well, probably as well. That's brilliant. Well, thank you, Emma, for coming. This is one of those brilliant podcasts where we have never met in real life. We've never had a conversation. We've followed each other a bit on social media, and there must have been something that happened at some point where I said, "Do you want to go on the podcast?" And you said yes, and here we are. And these are some of the richest conversations because we don't miss any of the juicy stuff that we chat about behind the scenes before we get on these things. So tell everybody, I've given everyone a little bit of an introduction, but just tell me where you're at the moment and what you do, and then we'll sort of go back a bit and we'll find out all about you from a medical point of view, but also business and how this all works for your life now.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Emma. I'm a GPST3 with a very small slither of training to finish. I went off on maternity leave essentially a week or so before my CCT date, and now I'm back just to kind of finish off and get to grips with clinical medicine again. I'm also a founder of a charity called the Shoebox Fairies, which has been established in Greater Manchester for the last 5 years. And I'm also the co-founder of a startup which is called Cocoon, and we are building a digital platform, software as a medical device, which is to support women who've experienced birth trauma as well. I do a few other bits and bobs. I do a podcast like yourself, Joe, very much inspired actually from your own podcast, kind of taking the plunge to do that. And I'm a mum, so doing the football run, got that to do tomorrow, and play dates, etc., etc. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, really.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of hats. There's a lot to get into there, but I really obviously want to talk to you about the health tech startup, and I'd love to know more about the charity. But let's just go back a little bit. Like, how did all of this come about? Have you been a medic with an entrepreneur ready to burst out of you, or has this all happened organically? Like, take me back a little bit.
So I think I've always been one of those people that likes to solve problems. So I have a habit that if I see something and I don't think it's right, or I think it needs improving, I kind of say it. So I've managed to get myself involved in plenty of quality improvement projects by doing that. And also kind of was involved in kind of the rollout of a new point of care test in one of the trusts where I was working in. And I've always been someone as well who's probably set things up. So whether or not that was as kind of the social secretary, organising weekends away, or someone that was setting up a new society, I've always had that within me. And then I suppose the first big thing that I really founded was the Shoebox Fairies, the charity. So yeah, I suppose there is that entrepreneurial spirit within me. When it comes to medicine as well, it was kind of 3 shots to get in, really. So I actually entered medicine as a graduate. Prior to that, I was a biomedical scientist. I'd done a biomedical sciences degree. I'd just missed out on the grades the first time round. The second time, I was predicted my degree result, but hadn't got it yet and didn't get any offers at that point. And then third time lucky, kind of got in. And did it as a graduate and really enjoyed it. In some ways, I'm kind of grateful that I maybe entered it a little bit later on. And then, yeah, I did, finished medical school, went and did my foundation years, and then initially specialised in obstetrics and gynecology and did that for just under 5 years before switching specialties and moving into specialty training for GP.
Amazing. I love that concept of being a bit grateful for that time. I guess you're going into it with a bit more of a mature head on. Your partying days, maybe you've done a bit you do a bit less of that. I'm sure that still happens at medical school, but not quite to the degree it does when you're 18 and you go in there. Maybe.
Very true.
Yeah, and you've got that wisdom. And I hear so, because I'm down in Swansea, I hear so many post-grad, the graduate scheme down here, they just really enjoy it because they're throwing themselves into all of these opportunities. Like, as a medical student, you get to go to, like I was in Liverpool, you get to spend 4 weeks in the Royal Liverpool Eye Hospital, like seeing people with melanomas in their eyes you're never going to see that again in your whole career. And as a medical student, you get to pop in, don't you, into these specialties and soak it up if you're a postgrad, as opposed to maybe if you're not, you don't really appreciate these things. Is that the sort of thing you found as well?
Yeah, I think as well, I think there's a different outlook on it when you're giving up a full-time job as well, when you're giving up a salary and you're committing yourself to, again, paying tuition fees, etc., rent, and on a shoestring again. And so it had to be for me that I made that kind of pact with myself that, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm really going to put my all into it, and make sure I get the most out of it, because I was leaving essentially another, biomedical science, or working as a biomedical scientist in the NHS. It's another very much like medicine, a treadmill of where you go. So I was jumping off that treadmill, and I knew that I need to really kind of justify that to myself as to why I was doing that. So I really wanted to put my all into making medicine a success.
Yeah, amazing. So let's go to the Shoebox Fairies. How did that come about? That's a charity that you've set up 5 years ago, and you're still running that now.
Yeah, we're still running now. We've got an office space up in Wigan, where kind of I was originally from. So that was founded actually from kind of my own experience, really. It was initially set up with my friend who was a neonatal nurse, and I was an obstetrics and gynecology registrar. And we kept seeing women coming in who just didn't have the basic items with them. They wouldn't have maternity pads or breast pads. They were, babies that were being dressed in size 9 to 12 month baby girls, newborn babies, because that is what they'd been managed to get hold of. And we knew that there was women living locally in poverty that just couldn't afford these things, or they were in a circumstance where there was no one looking after them and helping them to be able to sort things out. And so initially we started doing a rollout of what we call mother and baby boxes, which is still ongoing now, and we work with public health midwives. We work with social workers, women's refuges, etc., to make sure that women have this small pack. It is literally probably just bigger than a shoebox or two, and it's got in there kind of everything they would need for the first couple of weeks, really. Stuff for mum, stuff for baby, and that expanded out. And one of the biggest things that we do, and we've done annually, is something called the Christmas Shoebox Appeal. And what I love about that is that we work a lot with local primary schools, businesses. It really helps kind of with that sense of community, and I think that that's something that's often lost these days, particularly with I know we're going to talk about tech later on, but particularly with kind of social media and things. So yeah, it's something that we really, really enjoy. And I think last year we were able to distribute, I think it was like 1,115 boxes on our tracker, kind of throughout the local area to vulnerable residents and families.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And we'll link that in the show notes below for anyone that wants a bit more information. And I mean, you're a very busy lady. You have gone to medical school, you've started a charity, you've had a couple of kids maybe in this time. How do we get from the charity stuff through to the health tech? Talk me through this bit in the middle. Often people have done several things before, haven't they, before they come to a sort of bigger project. And obviously with the Shoebox Fairies, you must have got all the marketing experience, how to run a team, all of this stuff.
Definitely. And what I would say to anyone that's listening is there are no failures. You need to see anything that doesn't work. It's just a data point. You just need to take that on board. What worked well, what didn't, don't see it as a failure. I've done multiple things in my journey to get to this point, and they maybe weren't super successful, or they, for example, I think at one point I did a wedding blog, and got really into kind of writing and things. But that's really helpful actually now for content creation and for thinking about kind of digital marketing and things. So I think you learn from everything, so from every kind of project that you undertake, and it's all of value. But to actually kind of drill down on how I came across kind of the concept of Cocoon, or where that kind of, that dream came from, was I was on maternity leave with my youngest son, and I'd had quite a difficult delivery. It was preterm delivery with, I was quite unwell after as well. And I think unfortunately that's something that seems to go hand in hand with anyone that's worked in obstetrics. It seems to be a bit of a rite of passage that you all have these pretty tricky and out of the normal deliveries. But anyway, so basically, I've also obviously, with my background in obstetrics, I've been at a lot of births. Some of them didn't go quite as planned, and I've seen women kind of after those births within, that kind of acute postnatal period, but obviously in GP land as well, doing postnatal reviews and reviewing women from more kind of a mental health support background. And I realized that there was a gap there. And I think I'm quite an impacts driven person. And a big thing for me is about making impact and making change. And that is what I want to do with Cocoon. And I want to make perinatal mental health support relating to birth trauma a lot more accessible. And something that's on kind of the woman or the patient's terms as well, kind of short modules she can do about breastfeeding. It's on her own time instead of kind of, I suppose, being stuck on sometimes on a waiting list for a long time. And I think that I was very fortunate that it helped me as well be quite intentional with my time on maternity leave. So I think you can get quite lost sometimes on maternity leave. And I was really wanted to be intentional about not letting that happen this time round. And I wanted to use it as an opportunity. And don't get me wrong, I think it very much depends on the baby and kind of I was very lucky that at that time I had a son that liked to nap. Things have changed since then.
Is that the one that's trying to go to sleep upstairs?
That's the one, Joe, yeah. But yeah, at that time he loved a nice kind of afternoon snooze. And in that time I thought I can sit here and I could watch Netflix. I mean, there's plenty on there. Or I could use that time and try and do something constructive, keep my brain working. And initially I finished doing my menopause certificate, and I did a couple of other things. And I was like, I'm really passionate about this, kind of birth trauma idea that I've got. And I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the plunge because why not? And I think you become more aware as well that you see people and you think they're making a success, but a lot of it is you have to fall down, don't you, and dust yourself off and then get back up. And a lot of these people had done that and they'd learned from those experiences from talking to them. And yeah, it was kind of at that point where I thought, yeah, I'm going to take this, I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to try and make it a success.
So what was your first step? How do you go about you come up with a problem like you talked about earlier, and business essentially is finding solutions for problems, isn't it? So you've got your problem, you've got your passion, you've got your pockets of time. What was your next step?
So for me, a big thing that I did was network and find out from other people about their journeys and their experience. And I think LinkedIn, as we know, obviously I've connected with you on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a really kind of useful ecosystem, and I think that you can, 9 out of 10 times you can approach someone and they will have a quick coffee chat with you that you can learn about their experience. And I think that really helps kind of come up with a roadmap for yourself. So particularly with regards to health tech, it can help you learn about accelerators or about kind of networking events, because it is quite a niche area. It's becoming more popular, but particularly when you get into things like software as a medical device, it's quite a closed community. So I think it's the networking thing for me was really important. And then like I say, kind of thinking about the roadmap and the next steps. And so a lot of these things you need to apply for well ahead, and kind of there's timelines that you need to look at. So for example, I had like a list of all these things that I wanted to apply for, and made sure that I was aware of when they were coming up, those applications were being kind of opened up. And so yeah, getting organized, so networking and getting organized, and kind of knowledge, learning more about the subject any way I could through listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, reading books, just to feel more confident in that space as well.
Yeah. Did you do any sort of market research client related at that time, or was it really networking and conversations around how to get into the health tech? Or did you sit down with a room full of people with birth trauma and talk about things? Or did you felt like you'd kind of done that because of your work?
I think it was like, to be honest, you raise a really good point. I think validating the idea is important. And yes, I did do that. And I connected with the Birth Trauma Association, and they were really kind, and they shared around a survey kind of for me and my co-founder to better understand the landscape and what is it that women actually want. And so yeah, I think really understanding your niche is super important. And I think having that market research as well can give you kind of a sense of validation as well, that you're good to go ahead as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really important stage, isn't it? Because I think several times I've come up with ideas or problems that I've faced as an individual, and then maybe created something from it, and then maybe not really recognise that actually I'm not quite the market that I'm selling this to. So you've got to have those conversations. Even you can't have like a you need your first client, and it's generally a problem you've either come across yourself, or somebody that's struggling, or it's something to do with your lived experience or your professional experience. But validating that by having those conversations, not sitting in a dark room, investing all of your time and effort into creating a 12-week program and borrowing lots of money from other people until you have had those broader conversations. That's really important, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think there are lots of kind of, particularly in the health tech space, there are lots of solutions that are floating around, but people don't necessarily have that problem, or they might have that problem, but it's not on their priority list. So I suppose with regards to birth trauma and kind of maternity services at the moment, we know that there's the maternity inquiry, there's the NHS 10-year plan, which talks about analog to digital. It covers preventative care in the community. So it is, I suppose, particularly if you're building in a space where you're wanting to sell to, for example, the NHS or a big corporation, then it's about understanding that kind of playing field, isn't it? And particularly policy as well, and those changes.
Yeah, and getting in with that charity to be able to distribute that in that for pro forma out, so that you're gathering data. As an idea is one thing, but gathering the data and the evidence that actually that is required is another, and then finding the right people to support you is another. And so, when you were looking through all of this, I presume did you go on some sort of accelerator program or join with a tech support?
Yeah,
thing?
so I'm currently on an accelerator. I'm on the Propel Health Tech Accelerator, which is based out of Leeds. And that has been a fantastic resource for me. So much learning, dealing with people that you just don't come across in medicine. Like yesterday, I was in a room full of corporate lawyers for a whole day, learning about the ins and outs of contracts and, all sorts of things, investing and, kind of stuff that it's just not clinical medicine. It's all the commercial stuff is super new to me. So I'm kind of, there kind of furiously writing notes and thinking of things I need to go and read up and look on. So yeah, it's been invaluable to me, and I would, completely recommend it to anybody who is thinking about getting in that space or has got an idea and they feel like they just want some more support.
Yeah. And have you gone through like investment processes as well? Are you looking for capital, or is that not you're not
Yeah.
at that?
So because of some of the costs associated with becoming a software as a medical device, it's probably not the easiest thing to try and bootstrap.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have been looking at kind of the investment piece and fundraising, and that is something that is well out of my kind of comfort zone,
Yeah.
but something that is again great to network. I can't tell you how many people have just said, "Oh, I'll have a phone call with you about how we raised," and warm introductions are really important as well if you're seeking investment. I think people want people to make introductions with people that they think are good founders or they're good ideas. So I think if you can get those as well, that's really helpful.
And there's a lot around female founders, investing in female founders now, and women business investors looking for female founders, isn't there? Especially in the
Yes,
health tech space.
definitely. There's been some really interesting reports coming out on the amount of funding. Typically, VCs spend about 2% on kind of women's health kind of funding, which is nothing, is it? It's a drop in the ocean. And we know, 51% of the population are women. We have lots of responsibilities, obviously in the workforce, but also as caregivers as well. And women are not essentially small men. We have different physiology, we've got lots of other problems, and we have our health isn't just restricted to the pelvis as well. So, there's so much that needs to be done. We've not been included in research, up until the 90s. So that, we're essentially we're running way behind on the research and the knowledge that, we need to take innovation forward. So it should be a priority in my mind. And certainly, there's a lady called Debbie Wascow who
Yes.
she's managed to raise an enormous amount of money in a fund dedicated to women, and it's great to see that, and hopefully we'll see more. Something as well that I'm involved in, which I think you've mentioned to me before, Joe, is about the mentoring. And I'm a big believer in mentorship and about having that kind of guidance and support, particularly around health tech. And we know that female mentorship within tech is quite difficult to get, because there are fewer women in senior positions. And so they obviously get inundated with requests as well, from mentees. So that's something that we're working on as well, about trying to get some more events specifically to connect people to mentors, but also the concept of peer-to-peer mentorship as well, particularly when people are coming from different sectors. There's so much you can learn from each other. So I'm a big advocate of that as well.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the real life of having 3 kids, other half, training, charity, health tech, networking, all of this stuff. How do you juggle it all? How do you manage it all?
I am a very organised person. My friends still joke about the fact that when we had our first holiday when we were 18, I had a spreadsheet. It's just that is who I am, and I probably will never change. I'm super organised. I have that many lists. People always buy me list pads as well for my birthday. I have got planners, for everything. So I am a very organised person, and I'm someone who writes everything down, including what I'm going to do. I'm a big believer in goal setting as well, and I feel like I will commit to things more if I write them down, and I know there is a body of evidence to support that. The other thing is, for example, like you mentioned, my mum is, I'm on my non-working day to day, and my mum is, I'm grateful that she's kind of looking after my little boy whilst I'm on here with you. So I am lucky. I've got a supportive husband, I've got a supportive family that have been helping me as well. And I think I've heard on your podcast before about people talking about flow state as well, and about when you get into that flow, it doesn't feel like work. So I think if I'm really passionate about something, for example about the charity and about Cocoon, I don't feel like it's work the same, if that makes sense. And I get excited to think, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow, I'm going to speak to this person. And so it makes me think, oh, do you know what, I'm going to do that quickly, instead of sitting down in front of the TV or doing something else.
Making choices about how you spend your time is important, because you don't have that much time. Like, this whole, we all have 24 hours in the day. Like, I'm currently at home with one daughter and only have 4 kids. One of them's at university, but 2 of them are boys that eat out of house and home. I have so much more time than I do in my normal life. But there have been days where I'm not sure I've achieved half as much as I would have done if I'd had 45 minutes of time, because we kind of lean into these big, and you find you've got to be efficient, haven't you? When you have limited time, you have to be efficient. You have to have lists. You have to know what steps to take. But you have made lots of sort of messy, imperfect action along the way. Like, you sound like you've got it all together, and you have got it all together, and you're doing the right things. But previous you actually just gave things a shot as well, didn't you? How important is that?
Oh, definitely. I think and I would recommend this book to everybody, and I don't get royalties, but if anyone hasn't read Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, it is an amazing book, and it completely changed my outlook on taking risk and actually putting yourself out there. I think so many of us, we're sat on the sidelines thinking, what, I could maybe do that. I think I could probably do that. But we don't jump in and we don't do it because we're worried. We're worried that we're going to fail. We're worried that people might laugh at us or might go, oh, I knew you weren't capable of doing that. And I think I read that book and I thought, do you know what? My outlook has completely changed. And now, I'm a lot less bothered about what people think unless they're doing it themselves. They're in, as she would say, in the arena with me. Then yeah, like all, I'm still very open, and I'm a huge believer in feedback. particularly, constructive feedback. You don't want someone just to sit there and flatter your ego. You want something you can take with you and do something with. But yeah, I'm so much more open now to opportunities because I have let that guard down, which I think I had up for quite a long time.
And I think it's something that we are trained to put up as well. I think I see this in most medics that I work with. Somewhere along the line, there are things that have happened to us, or incidences that we've experienced, or boxes we've had to tick in terms of appraisal and jumping through the hoops at medical school. And generally, that fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of showing up, like it's really front and center for a lot of people, and it sometimes takes time, doesn't it? It doesn't. I mean, you've read a book and it's made an impact, but I see people that need to have quite substantial amounts of therapy and support. And I've had sessions of therapy and coaching that I've talked about. It's that mindset shift, isn't it, that needs to happen.
100%. And I think, I say, I've read a book, but I mean, I have probably lived with that kind of anxiety around failure for years. And like you say, the medical school environment is a tricky one to navigate, particularly if you're someone that is a worrier. I think sometimes, worried about passing exams, worried about not getting into, the next kind of cohort or whatever. And I think that it is something that you need to work on, or certainly quite a few of us need to work on once we kind of get out of that environment and into the real world. Because I do think medicine in itself is very different to a lot of the other kind of industries and other places. It's a strange place.
Yeah, it is, and so many of the skills are the complete opposite of what you require to run a business or start a project or get market research. Even that concept, I was speaking to somebody this morning about an idea that she'd had, and I was saying, right, you've just got to get out there now and find lots of people that you think have that problem and talk to them, find out more about it. What's stopped them getting help? What do they wish they'd had? What sort of experiences have they gone through? And not in a kind of like sleazy car salesman way. Like, I think that's what medics, we think about sales and business. It's like, I'm drawing people in and I'm going to capture them and sell something to them. It's not that. It's like, you want to have an impact. You want to make a difference. You want to help people, and you want to have joy in your life and thoroughly love your work. You need to get in front of people and talk to them. And I mean, business and community and connection are all in one, aren't they? You've talked about networking events. I love nothing more than going to those things and chatting to people. I bet you do as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that's really good to work on as well is kind of almost like your elevator pitch for yourself. And I think that, I know that you talk a lot, and you've got your clarity starter kit, haven't you, Joe? And I think that it's really important to sometimes just sit there and reflect and think, what's my elevator pitch, to other people about me? Because I think that can really help as well with that clarity. And sometimes networking events can feel quite daunting. You can feel quite awkward, particularly that imposter syndrome is a something that definitely starts to rear its head, I think, particularly, if you're in big events with people that are maybe kind of ahead of you on their journey. And I think sometimes having, a bit of an elevator pitch for yourself just to fall back on in those situations can be quite helpful.
Yeah. And the good news is that as a doctor, you've always got that to say. Like, you can be in a room as a consultant, obs and gynae, with even if you're not doing any private work, you can go to a networking event just like anybody else can. And actually having that doctor thing, actually is interesting on its own. You forget that most people aren't surrounded by lots of doctors, and you're bound to get somebody coming up and wanting to show you their rash at the end of it. But actually, I still, often lead with the fact that I'm a locum GP and blah, blah, blah. And because it's that sort of anchor, people understand that. And then I do the add-on, and I still do that however many years later. And it's not because I don't want to it's not because I'm, just wearing my doctor boots and I don't want to sort of leave it. It's that I'm really proud of what I do. I'm really proud that I'm still working in the NHS. I enjoy my GP shifts now. And 7 years ago, I wanted to leave entirely. So I'm okay with that. And actually, you don't have to have some great business plan or some, amazing sentence to say. You just have to know what you would say when somebody says, "What's your name and what do you do?" Don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as well, you when it comes to kind of health tech as well, sometimes you can undervalue what your skills are just from being a doctor, particularly an understanding of the patient experience and patient pathways. Because there's lots of founders working in the space, they don't really understand how people flow through the NHS and kind of navigate the system. And as a doctor, you do, and you can bring a lot of value to other people by sharing that experience. And definitely, there's a lot of space in kind of like, in the advisory role for that. And that's another kind of thing that I've done as well in the past.
Mm. So what about negative well, not negative, but what about the downsides, if there are any? I'd love to sort of hear your advice to somebody that was going on this path. But are there any downsides for you personally for working like this, or are you kind of got it down pat now?
I suppose it is. Well, it's all about time management, and some weeks are harder than others, and particularly, with it's making sure you fit that self-care in as well. Because I think, particularly as a mum, I feel like that can sometimes go by the wayside for me. Particularly, for example, if one of my children isn't very well, or there's this a conflict where I was going to have some time to myself, but maybe something else has come up now and I need to take them somewhere. Or so I think it's about, if you're going to plan your time, you need to have a bit of a safety net for if you can't fit in that thing that was for you that you wanted to do, that was supposed to be your downtime or your self-care. So yeah, I think, and yeah, sometimes it can be difficult with juggling sometimes travel and things as well. For example, kind of I've been traveling to the accelerator, which has meant I've spent a bit more time in the car, which it feels like, oh, is it dead time? But in that time I try and maybe listen to something that I've been wanting to listen to, or try and make the most of the small moments of time as well. Yeah.
And you're able to shut your brain off at the end of the day?
I don't think I've ever been able to shut my brain off at the end of the day. I honestly don't think if you ask my husband or my mum, they'd probably say the same, to be fair. Yeah, I am someone, I think that is just me. I am always, operating on full cylinders. But yeah, I don't think that's probably going to change much now.
Tell me a little bit about your podcast before we get your advice.
So I do a podcast called the Pink Pineapple Podcast, and we focus, myself and Claudia. Claudia is someone that's been working in health tech. She used to be a GP. She's been in health tech, I think, for about 8 to 9 years. She was one of the medical directors at Flow, the period tracker. And what we do is we look at kind of innovation in women's health, particularly in femtech. I know some people don't like that term, or women's health tech, and also what we call like next generation women's health. And we've had some super interesting founders, clinicians and non-clinicians. We've had someone come on today who's a midwife that has developed a hardware medical device which is to support the perineum during childbirth to reduce the risk of perineal tears. And she showed us this device. It was amazing. And we've got someone coming on next week who's developed this amazing topical treatment over the counter for like recurrent UTIs, essentially, or essentially kind of the vaginal microbiome. It's so interesting because I am a geek and I love all of the proper, like medicine and the physiology. So I love it. So it's a bit of a passion project for me, but it's so inspirational as well, the things that people are achieving. And yeah, like, clinicians or people that have just had a lived experience, and so it's a source of inspiration for me, but also a great networking opportunity as well.
Yeah, fantastic thing to be able to invite people along when you're there and find out other recommendations from people. That's brilliant. We'll link all of this in the show notes. I've loved talking to you. I could talk to you all day, but I do try to keep my episodes under 45 minutes, which we're on to. What about your advice? There's some, say there's somebody sitting at home, maybe he's done, a lot of people that I work with have done some coaching qualifications, maybe done some menopause training, maybe looking at setting up a private clinic of some sort, maybe using their expertise. Not, how would you advise somebody that's sort of sitting on that fence of, shall I do something different, or shall I just carry on with my day job, which is okay. Like most people's day job, it's okay. Like most of us go into medicine and we don't fall out of love with medicine. We fall out of love with the system pressures that are on us, the NHS, the limitations of the NHS. What would you say to somebody in that sort of position?
I would say just be intentional. It doesn't have to be that you're making huge steps in the beginning. Even if you make a very small incremental step every day, and that could be an email, a phone call, I'm going to look on this website and read up on something. It's all progress. And just start, because if you don't, you'll probably be in the same position in 3 months' time. So start. It doesn't need to be big, but just be intentional. If you're someone like me who likes to set goals, do that as well. Write it down, put it in your notes on your phone, look at it every so often, add some bits to it, think about what it is that you want to achieve. But yeah, the first thing is just start, and bit by bit.
I love that. You've got to start. You've got to get some momentum, haven't you? It's simple though, but I love the way you say one phone call, one email. It doesn't, you have to know where you're going. And that's why I always use that analogy of, a flight of stairs there's actually a big lighthouse at the end of it for some reason on my slide, but you need to know where you're heading, and that can be adjusted. Make those little adjustments as you go along and things change, but you've just got to take one step after another. And
Definitely.
That bravery grows as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That courage.
I think if you start thinking about the big thing all at once, it can be overwhelming, it can be daunting, and it seems unachievable. But if you were to say to someone, you just need to approach one person on LinkedIn tomorrow, and that's it, that doesn't feel as daunting. But like you say, over time, it could be, right, you just need to host this LinkedIn live chat, or you're going to, form such a group, or whatever. The things become bigger, but they don't seem as daunting as they do in the beginning.
Wonderful, fabulous advice. And I am going to link everything in the show notes. What's the best way of people getting in touch with you? If somebody wants to reach out to you, where are you hanging out the most?
So LinkedIn, I'm on there, Dr. Emma Thornton. Feel free to send me a message if there's anything that I can help you with, any advice, and I always will. And then our Pink Pineapple podcast is on Spotify if you're someone that's interested in women's health or the health tech space. That'd be great to see you there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time, Emma.
Oh, thank you. It's been really nice. Thank you so much for having me on.
I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at joe@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.